Welcome back to the 2014 Spring Promotion Tournament live from Cologne, Germany. We're just minutes away from the best of 5 between Ninjas in Pajamas and KMT for the final spot in the Spring Split. But gentlemen, I first want to get your guys' take on the Battle of the Atlantic. Wicked, we were just talking about it for quite some time. Let's start with picks and bans. You know, what threw you off or even made you surprised about it?
It really made me surprised that they picked Sion and played him on Mew instead of putting Mew as the top laner and then letting Slayer play Renekton. Because, for example, as you saw in the game, Slayer doesn't have the most experience on Renekton, and he kind of got dominated by Shyvana early game, which shouldn't happen.
And quick shot, looking at the laning phases, how do you feel they could have changed in favor of Lemondogs?
I think the big key for Lemondogs was the inability to convert kills to objectives. And I think going forward, they need to practice in their scrims, figuring out how they can make those kills work for them. Just getting a kill on somebody who's overextended isn't the best. You need to time it correctly, push for an objective, go for blue buff, go for red buff, things like that. And maybe itemization could have been improved, but game 2 was a marked improvement for game 1 as far as the Lemondogs were concerned.
And Wicked, we were talking about that. They actually fared better in laning phase, but where do they drop the ball for Lemondogs?
I think, as I said earlier, the main point was the solo lanes that swapped lane. They just weren't experienced in that lane and they didn't do so well. For example, you even saw Sion. He was being really far behind in the early game, but then he started to pick up, start roaming and getting kills, so it was all right for him. But Slayer was just getting destroyed, and he was always 1v1, so he couldn't do anything else.
And about that lane swap, you guys know about it, switching people around, playing supports, mids, tops, and everywhere. Is it done rarely? When is it done? Were they kind of forced into it and thought it could work? What do you think they were doing?
So I think lane swaps are very rare, like you don't see them that often, and it's done, for example, like Zed used to be a top lane champion, and I played him all the time, so I was really good on Zed, and then suddenly he became really strong in mid, and Frank hadn't played him that much, so it's pretty normal for me just to play Zed, and I could easily play him in mid. But for example, like Renekton now, it's not like a champ that's haven't been played top and been played mid, so it didn't make much sense.
All right, gentlemen. Enough of that. The Battle of the Atlantic will continue on, but now I want to shift the discussion over to the promotion series up. NiP versus KMT coming up right now. How do you guys see this one playing out? Wicked, we'll start with you.
Well, I see this one playing out by Zero dominating top lane. Like, honestly, I played so much against him, and I can't see anything else happening.
Why is that? What makes him so strong?
Zero's incredibly strong because he managed to outplay you mechanically, and then he gets a little advantage, and he just pushes you, and then starts roaming. So he's going to proxy farm you, like go behind your tower, kill the creeps, and then go gank mid or put pressure on other lanes.
And Trevor, watching these teams kind of birth their way here, what are you thinking?
I think NIP is in the position where if they deal with the nerves correctly, they should be able to pick this series up. I think they are a strong favorite coming into this against KMT. I know for a fact that they are incredibly nervous. We were leaving the venue last night at 1 a.m. and they were just coming back from getting some food, and they continued scrimming to the early hours of the morning, you know? So this is a team that has been working very, very hard. They skipped DreamHack to practice 3.14. And I had a chat with Deficio about how the team's looking and how he feels they're performing. And he says he's come to understand the team a lot more from a month ago until now, and some of the defense mechanisms they have to deal with the nerves and the tension is coming out, and he's saying that they're feeling confident, they're feeling good, thanks to the fact that they've been training very, very hard for this.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. Wicked, once again, let's head over to D-Man and Jat at the caster desk and see if it plays out the way we think.
Thank you very much, Riff. And of course, it is the final match of the weekend for us. It's the final game we're going to get Casca this year.
The entire year.
I don't want to get too carried away, though, because we are nearly at the end of the year already. But it is going to be Ninjas in Pajamas versus KMT. I'm not even going to attempt to say their proper Polish name.
Kieres Malice team.
Ah.
I don't think that's
I should have got you to do that more often.
Malin.
But this, it's been a crazy tiebreaker weekend. Meal Makers, unfortunately, have gone to the wayside against the Copenhagen Wolves after a fantastic first game. And yesterday, SK Gaming, they had some incredible matches. They came back from a 3-2. Pressure is on these guys because they actually finished second in the summer split. Well, they tied second.
Exactly.
And then they had that crazy tiebreaker
all
weekend.
downhill from there.
They lost to Fnatic. Then they went to Gamescom. They lost to Gambit. They lost to Alternate at Gamescom. And suddenly, here they are. They're in the promo series. It's crazy for them.
They didn't expect to be, and that's why it was so disappointing as far as their finish goes. But they completely retooled their roster during the offseason. Wicked was just talking about Zoro0 in the top lane. He's not the only old Lemon Dogs member they picked up. They also have Mithy and Nukeduck from that team. Then they also have Hercubot from SK, and the only returning actual player aside from Deficio, who's now their manager, is Freeze in that bottom lane. So that new roster has actually had mixed success so far.
Yeah.
Even though it's so kind of hyped up with star players. They beat TCM 2-1 at IEM Cologne, but they actually lost in the finals of that tournament to Copenhagen Wolves, who we saw a couple days ago.
Yeah, and then they hit the panic button. They withdrew from DreamHack, which they were going to, and said, we need to focus on 3.14, and they just completely shut down. It was full panic mode. I spoke to the Deficio about it, and he was just like, I was like, why didn't you attend it? It was the old patch. You weren't going to show anything. He said, we panicked as a team. And that goes to what Trevor just said. You know, the fact that 1:30 last night, everybody was closing down, leaving here. They were turning up to practice.
Yeah, and that's really going to come in handy if the practice pays off.
If
I mean,
the practice
a lot
pays
of times
off.
for especially the players on that team that have actually been in the LCS for a while, sometimes you can kind of get lulled into a sense of security, thinking, yeah, sure, we are in the promotion tournament. We get first pick of any challenger team. It should be easy for us, and they could kind of lull into it. And maybe they were up until that point in IEM Cologne, but not since then, that's for sure.
It'd be interesting to see how that scrims went, because TSM, up till now, actually was struggling in scrims today, and they were panicking, but it seemed to work out for them. But of course, they did finish 6th, which means they chose KMT.
Yeah, and they obviously had the first choice in that. KMT barely made it in, actually, by upsetting TCM in the final game of that Challenger Round Robin series. I actually think that NIP would have picked either one of those teams.
Yeah.
And as far as this team that we have here, these guys have bounced around with so many different names and played so many different positions. It's really a mixed match group of players that have been around in the Challenger scene for a while, but never cracked through. And this is their best shot at the LCS.
Yeah, and of course, because of their underdog status, KMT is coming into this, the most important game of their lives, confident that Ninjas in Pajamas, well, they're going to be the ones feeling the pressure on the promotion tournament stage.
That's the most important tournament I took part in.
It means the great opportunity. Naprawdę chcę być w LCS-ie.
We're coming as underdogs for this tournament, so the pressure is on NIP, not on us, so we are really confident to play.
Yeah, I'm confident, but still I'm a bit in stress because I have to win.
This is a really fun feeling, like you have to play for everything.
I think it's a bit stressful that we have to qualify again for the LCS, but we're pretty confident we'll manage to do it.
Actually, I can't wait for games. I really want to prove that I'm better than Hercubot in the jungle. I don't really know him. I don't really know what he plays. I did some research against him. I watched some scrims, his LCS games. I know which champions he plays, like everything that I could.
In Scrim, we don't ban any champion, so I'm ready to face no matter what he plays.
I think we're in a good position. LCS, here I come.
LCS, here I come. Confident words from Ninjas in Pajamas, but KMT seems to have done a lot of research on NIP.
Yeah, and it's actually really hard for NIP to do the research back onto KMT because they've actually went kind of dark for the last 2 weeks. Even though you can scout their main accounts because they've been around for so long, there's no high profile on this team. So when they switch to their secondary accounts, people don't know where they go. There's no Reddit detectives on the case to figure out what they've been practicing in. So NIP has to kind of generically prepare for this team.
Luckily, though, because we're here and all the teams are involved, we get the detective side of ourselves. And I can tell you, don't write off KMT. They beat TSM this morning in scrims.
Yeah, and we know that TSM just won that Battle of the Atlantic against the Lemon Dogs team very cleanly. And you can obviously not read too far into scrims, but that means take them seriously.
Absolutely. So let's check out the starting lineups. On the blue side, it is going to be Ninjas in Pajamas in that top lane. Zoro0, the man that could be the top man in Europe right now, according to Wicked. Who knows? Hercubot, the jungler, come over from SK Gaming. Nukeduck, he's in towards that mid lane now. Used to be in Lemon Dogs. Freeze, he's been the staple diet there, the one and only really remaining member in Ninjas in Pajamas. And Mithy, the new support alongside him, also come from Lemon Dogs.
And of course, the challengers on the red side is KMT with Zazus in the top lane, Jankos in the jungle, Overpow in the mid lane, he's been around for a while, Celavar on AD carry, he's played a lot of different positions, and also Vander on support.
So what are we expecting from this? What do we take from the picks and bans as we move into this one? Do we go with the standards? The standards currently because Rengar's ban has been stacking on towards that top lane, try and take as much away from the top lane as you can so you can get that first pick on the top.
And why wouldn't Zoro want to do that with Ninjas in Pajamas right now? So that could potentially be one top lane ban, so they get the other strong top laner. If you're considering Shyvana and Mundo, with Renekton being slightly below that tier. I think that could definitely happen in the picks and bans.
Or Malphite, if you're Wicked.
If you're Wicked. We don't have Wicked in this game, though. He's like the Malphite master right now, as far as the Trinity Force build goes. No one else is really on his level with that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see which way Zoro goes, because the discussions with Wicked about it was like, normally, when these lineups happen, Renekton should be the Shyvana, he says, but sometimes if you're against Zoro, you can't win that lane. It really can be down to the skill of that player. We will see how it goes, though. Picks and bans coming through. Caitlyn taking out, Gragas removed as well, so not going to let Nukeduck have that one. You know, I don't think we're going to see Nukeduck on Sion this time around. He played it in Cologne as fun, but this is serious time for both teams.
Yeah, these are, again, some of the most important games these guys have played. Amazingly, 3 of the players here on NIP were at Worlds. So it's not like they haven't played high-pressure games before. They didn't have the performance they wanted to at the World Championships, but at least they have that experience to bring back here. And you can see with their bans, at least, the Caitlyn is very much specifically at Celavar. It's also because there's been so much success with Caitlyn so far at this promotion tournament, just with the fast pushing. That's something NIP doesn't want KMT to be able to do. And then the Olaf and Castron, I think, are more generic bans.
And I'd actually like to see the stats for this one. I'm sure Optimus Tom out back will be sorting these stats out for us, but I'm pretty sure Castron's been 100% banned this entire tournament.
Castron's been banned every single game. But this is exactly what we thought NIP would do. And it's surprising, actually, that KMT are the ones that banned Dr. Mundo. Obviously, Dr. Mundo has been wrecking everything, but that means they're basically stuck in with going Renekton now instead of having their pick of Shyvana or Mundo. Not right off the bat. Well, they don't need to do it right off the bat, but they'll do it.
Ordinarily, they don't need to, but we talked about this heads up multiple times, and I was just saying how Shyvana works very well for Zoro. Ordinarily, you would give the lane to Renekton. Will they go 2v1?
Yeah, that's almost too early to tell.
Yeah.
We've also seen, since NIP might have more experience, they'd be more inclined to do a 2v1 because they're much more adept at tower diving early on in the game. The one reason you would go for Renekton at this point is so that NIP doesn't throw Shyvana into the jungle. We know Hercubot as well has been playing a lot of farm-heavy junglers, or even if he's not a farm-heavy jungler, farms a lot.
And speaking of farm, this is something we're going to have to keep an eye on especially for this game, is Hercubot gives nothing to Freeze. Nothing. No. Does not allow him to have any farm at all.
They have a fun little relationship there. I'm sure they're eventually happy with each other, and that's an interesting bot lane choice as well. Right off the bat, they're obviously saving their mid lane picks. That's something that Nukeduck was very used to doing when he was on Lemondogs, is always picking near the end what he would be playing in the mid lane. Karma has been a really resurgent pick here this weekend in Cologne, and the Ezreal has also been fairly strong, even though he doesn't fit into that big 3 Lucian, Sivir, Jinx that everyone's been talking about.
Well, I mean, the AD carriers all have their own opinions, of course, and potentially seeing a Vayne coming out for Celavar here. So at the moment, actually, KMT team have picked pretty much their own champion, so we'll see whether Overpower goes for a mid laner. Will he go for that support? I would expect the support to come out here, and it's looking like it will be Thresh.
Yeah, because they don't want to let Nukeduck pick a camp.
Yeah, absolutely.
They have to wait for Overpower to pick his mid laner into whatever Nukeduck has planned for him. And it's actually really interesting that we get a Vayne versus Ezreal matchup right here. We do have to remember that Vayne was banned all 5 games against Candy Panda in the promotion series last night.
That's because he carried so heavily at DreamHack with that one champion.
Yeah.
He individually picked up SK Gaming and carried them through to the cup.
And especially for a lot of these challenger teams, having those individual carries is almost valued more than it would be for an LCS team or the really, really top tier team. So them getting the Vayne kind of gives them that wild card of, you know, if all goes wrong, Celavar has a great game on Vayne, maybe they can take it, is probably what they're thinking.
And if you guys at home are watching and maybe recognizing some of the names of KMT, they have been around for a very long time as a team, under various different guises. Every time they drop the sponsor, they revert back to KMT. They've been at Sao Paulo. They're in the finals against, it was Samsung Blue, as they are now, and actually put up a very good performance against them. So these guys have a lot of international experience as well, so do not write them off. NIP are very strong right now in scrims from what we're hearing, but KMT are an incredible team. And the picks coming in here, and Amumu picked up again. We saw it just a moment ago for Lemondogs. Now we're seeing it for Hercubot.
And it didn't work for Lemondogs, but I feel like NIP is a much more experienced team with this, especially Hercubot. The team is used to having him play with a farm-heavy jungler, and also since their lanes are so strong. Zoro0 was talked up by Wicked. Nukeduck was one of the most lethal mid laners in all of Europe last year. So those guys can hold their own, whether or not Hercubot is able to gank frequently.
Absolutely. Final pick kind of come in. Could be a Kayle. I mean, it's up against an Orianna in that mid lane, or will they switch the lanes around? Haven't seen a Kayle for a long time in League.
No, it's been a while. We saw Kayle a little bit as a counter pick to some of the assassins back at Worlds in Season 3, but this is really just trying to get lane power and maybe throwing a little bit more shielding into Selavar's Vayne, if it comes to that. It's a bold pick right there. I think it's strong in the lane, and he's going to try and stick with Nukeduck with that.
So looking at both teams, there's a lot of crowd control from both sides. There's a lot of slows, a lot of stuns. KMT actually have quite a lot of stuns now. I'm looking at it, a lot of crowd control. You can't get in too deep. Selavar's just going to knock you back. You've got the thresh hooks, the flays, the slows, the like you say, the invulnerability. There's so much coming out of KMT here.
It definitely seems like KMT's more the team to single out individuals and try and take them down, where NIP is going to be the team that wants to find the big team fights because they have much more AoE damage on their side, which is actually kind of reverse of what we're used to seeing, or that we saw in the TSM series, where the experienced team in TSM took the team that would get single targets and roam around the map and find kills, whereas Lemondogs picked the AoE comp. This time, it's NIP with the AoE comp, the more experienced team, going to try and catch them in groups.
Well, as we get set for the game one, let's check out who you guys at home think will earn their spot in the final European Spring Split place. According to lollysports.com, well, no surprise here, 78% of you have voted for Ninjas in Pajamas and think they will win their way back into the LCS. And while, of course, this is our final promotion tournament matchup here in Europe, let's not forget, North American Spring Promotion Tournament will be kicking off on Friday, live from Los Angeles.
Yeah, plus the Battle of the Atlantic will continue next weekend as well, with CLG taking on Team Alternate. XDG, who is formerly Vulcan, is playing Gambit, and you have to be able to watch Cloud9 against Fnatic as well.
Yeah, if you want to watch the LCS regions face off in our new LA studios, head over to lollysports.com, click on Battle of the Atlantic tab, and grab your tickets. And, well, you guys all at home have seen how fantastic it is in the new European studios. Don't forget, there is a new North American studios, and if it's anything like it is here, it will be a fantastic environment for you guys to go and sit in. It is going to be very similar, I feel. Think of the Culver studios we had. It's going to be a similar setup to that, and it was a brilliant environment for the World Championships. But right now, we are into the game, and Ninjas in Pajamas are the blue side, KMT as the red side. The final spot in the LCS up for grabs. The career of these players is on the line. And for NIP, well, this is the second time they've been here. They were as the Copenhagen Wolves and got picked up by Ninjas in Pajamas off the back of their performance in the summer promotions.
Yeah, NIP, after making all these roster movements, needs a payoff, especially the risk that the 3 Lemondogs players took coming over to this team. They had an LCS spot secured.
Yeah.
But they decided to go with NIP because they wanted the opportunity here. And something that's actually quite interesting at the start of this game is Hercubot on Amumu did not start with 5 potions. He has a stealth ward already in his inventory. He placed the trinket ward first, and he's going to save the stealth ward for later, but you can just see a littering of little dots on the minimap right there because they do not want to get counter-jungled by Jankos' Elise.
Looks like it will be full lane swaps coming around here. KMT do want to go for that blue invade, though, but they will get spotted out by that ward at the entrance. And speaking of problems, actually, we'll get back to that in a moment. If they don't get caught out, that Karma, it's that big AE stun will stop that attack in its tracks. But it's such an unusual situation to see. A team that finishes second in the league transferring 3 of their players, the core of their players, to a team that's in the relegation battle. You would never see that in any other sport.
It shows a lot of confidence right there from those guys, saying they know that they are a top team, and they're just going to try and win a spot back because they think they deserve it.
So here we go. It is the lanes in the top. Let's see how it works out. Vayne, we haven't seen for a while in 3.14, honestly, certainly in the European LCS side of things, but OGN, I believe it has put in an appearance. Ezreal, though, alongside Karma. Karma has really risen to popularity in 3.14.
Yeah, so much of it, and it's kind of strange because Karma doesn't really seem like something that would be changed by all the preseason changes all that much. People are just finally trying her on support, which to me is kind of what she is best at. She has incredible peel and especially early presence in lane, which is so important. Having that mantra Q has already taken Vayne below half health. Freeze hasn't even had to assist in that.
This is going to be a big, heavy shove lane in the top, and let's talk about this bottom, because the bottom lane, obviously the Renekton Shyvana, it's a battle that we've seen pretty much every single game this weekend so far. And honestly, it's a battle that's been back and forth.
Yeah, and normally we don't need to pay too much attention to these side laners because they're usually just tanks that slap each other for a little while. But at least here, knowing that Zoro0 is supposed to be able to win these matchups, Renekton generally has the matchup against Shyvana levels 1 through 8. And if Shyvana hasn't fallen too behind by that point, that's when she will take over. But maybe Zoro's different, a different breed of top laner.
Maybe here's this mid lane, of course, Nukeduck, who was prolific and sometimes a little overconfident in his plays. Certainly at the World Championships it showed, but he is up against Overpower. And Overpower's one of those champions that's pretty much played every position that I can think of through teams. The entire team has juggled its positions around. Salavar, Overpower, these guys have been around for a long time. They've played the top, they've played the jungle, and now they're playing the mid.
And it's actually pretty interesting that Overpower is playing Kayle since he's played so many different positions. A champion who can play pretty much every position on the map. There's actually a Kayle player who posted on Reddit, Diamond 1, only Kayle, every position, AMA. Overpower obviously is playing, this is how you do it mid against Nukeduck. But I actually think NIP's laners are going to be a little bit cautious early, only because I don't expect too much early presence from Hercubot, and they have to fear Jankos' Elise just a little bit.
Yeah, Elise has definitely been a very strong champion in 3.14 so far. Evelynn was available, if I recall, and wasn't picked up there, so Hercubot choosing to go with Anamumu instead. He spoke to us a couple of days ago, and we knew that was in his champion pool, but I wasn't expecting him to pull it out in game one. Maybe it was something they could have saved for later on. But remember, this is a best-of-5 series. Lots of games potentially could be happening here after we just saw TSM whitewash. And don't forget, teams can come back. We saw it just last night. SK Gaming thought they were down and out against Super Hot Crew, but they turned it around and came back 3-2. Will we see the same tonight?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot that can happen. It's so strange that we've had best of 5s so often go to 5 games in these promotion tournaments. Pretty much half the time it seems to be happening. And it's the type of conservative laning we expected to see out of NIP thus far. And Jankos probably has to worry a bit about falling out of pace from Hercubot and Mumu right now. His laners haven't been able to take any advantages, despite no ganks coming out from Amumu, and that'll hurt later if he doesn't make something happen soon.
Mithy continuing to poke, keep them back with the mantra, just queuing them back, and so far they've not really been able to exert much pressure in that top lane. Salavar falling quite far behind in terms of farm against Freeze.
Yeah, Salavar, as far as Vayne versus Ezreal goes, is a tough matchup for Vayne. And I also think the Karma support, at least right now, since they're not getting hit by Vander's Thresh hooks, is letting them outpoke them. We saw just at the start of it, Mithy took Salavar incredibly low by himself with a couple of those Mantrid Karma Qs, and that will continue, especially seeing that Salavar hasn't went for an early Vamp Scepter like almost all Vaynes do, since you get extra lifesteal when you use Tumble and get the increased damage. Instead, he's gone for the health and the life on hit from Doran's, which has actually been reduced in the 2014 season to 3 for ranged champions.
And it's actually a mix. Obviously, the Phage probably going to come out for Freeze first, it seems here, rather than going for that Sheen, which we often see. It seems he wants to get that health on him as quick as possible. We did see Yankov having a little peek in towards that top lane, but immediately with that ward there, the sweeper spotting it out.
Yeah, there is a lot of caution coming out from NIP, and this is kind of according to their game plan. One interesting thing that I'm waiting to see right now, since we're about 7 minutes into the game, is whether Hercubot decides to take the blue buff when it comes out, even though Nukeduck is on mid as Orianna. I'm trending to think that he's going to want to take that blue buff on Amumu and continue farming, since Amumu's rather mana heavy in the jungle, and I know that Hercubot trends towards the Spirit of the Ancient Golem on Amumu, despite the mana concerns. That may or may not hurt the mid lane for Nukeduck if he has to play without a blue buff.
Meanwhile, Overpower is actually gone for the Source Boots as first item, so he wants to get that maneuverability, he wants to get in there, maybe try and create something on Nukeduck. Nukeduck, who himself does not have boots right now, so he's going to have a big movement speed advantage over him.
Yeah, and that's something that's fairly key against Orianna. If you can't dodge the little balls being thrown back and forth and moved so quickly, you're going to have a little bit of trouble. And that also means Overpower's trying to cut through Nukeduck's defenses early.
Now we are seeing that blue buff started off. We'll see where the Nukeduck comes across. They did just spot out Jankos there. The hook, though, on towards Mithy. The flay follows in there, but they're not too worried about it. The mantra doesn't land, but Freeze doing defensive duties and keeping them at bay. Blue buff has been picked up by Hercubot.
Yeah, and that actually shows that in the duo lane, Selavar and Vander are a little bit scared of what Freeze and Mithy can throw at them. The Karma has made her impact on that lane. They don't want to mess with her. Even though the hook landed, they really didn't think of an engagement.
Well, Hercubot is a long way away from this one, and the Dragon mid started off just the two members. The moment the presence of Nukeduck will potentially force them to back away. We see the two bottom lanes as well, making moving positions. Xaxos versus Zoro0, who has actually gone fairly evenly traded so far. Xaxos does have that slight edge.
Yep, there is definitely the Renekton taking his slight edge at the start, knowing that there have been almost no jungler interventions there. And surprisingly, Jankos has stayed pretty heavy on farm. He just hasn't been able to find ganks, though.
Well, that speed boost from Nukeduck, just making sure, even though he hasn't got the boots, we'll just avoid that gank. It does mean they're going to get a little bit of a free time on towards that tower. And they've got to be careful because Kayle can put a lot of damage down on towers if given free time.
And now Nukeduck also has to play down a blue buff in lane against Kayle, which means he's going to be getting shoved in fairly repetitively. NIP is going to lose a little bit of map pressure in return for Hercubot having more farming capabilities.
Zoro0 popping that ultimate to no effect because it went straight in towards the Dominus of Xaxos. So back and forward, both have the ignites ready and waiting, but nobody really going for it.
And that's actually a really common play by Shyvana's in the laning phase, is to just ult, clear a wave really quickly, and then go back and shop. They were both just sitting on Doran shields, and if he hadn't ulted, Xaxos would have kind of just been more powerful than him on Renekton until that moment. Ulted, cleared the wave, now he gets to buy.
He actually kept up with farm as well, so they're up to level 8. They were both at 82 apiece when they backed. Obviously, slight advantage for Xaxos. He stuck around a little bit longer. Jankos coming down towards this bottom lane, but immediately was spotted out by Ward in that river, so very cautious play. 10 minutes gone, no kills.
And this is NIP's game plan, I think. Even though the gold is still rather close, NIP is not panicking here. When they pick the heavy area of effect team with an Amumu jungle, they are not expected to make an early impact. When we actually just saw the new Lemondogs roster try a similar composition against TSM, TSM absolutely obliterated them in the early game because that is when the composition is at its weakest point. And NIP is actually coming out of this with a very minimal gold lead. So you have to think that they're winning at this point.
Well, top laners are going for the Sunfire Capes. Meanwhile, the AD carries, we can see, looks like it's going to be Bloodthirster first for Selavar. Going to be trying to get that one out there. He has got that Vampiric Scepter finally into his build. Meanwhile, Sheen almost completed along with that Phage for Freeze on the AD carry. Let's have a look at the supports because we've been keeping our eye on these. They've actually gone pretty standard though. You can see the Sightstone, the coin in there, the talismans being built up. Fairly standard stuff, and also Dragon being started off.
Yeah, and they're actually catching KMT in a lane swap right now. I'm not sure exactly if they lucked into this one, but securing the first Dragon is a very great thing for NIP. You can see Renekton was running top, as well as Selavar had just went back to base, so NIP beat him to the punch there. Yeah. But to get back to your supports, they've both upgraded their coin to a No Man's Medallion, which is what I would suggest for most people because it increases the gold you get from minions. It actually doubles it the first time you upgrade it. And them both getting that, since it is a farm-heavy game, is important for both of their gold flows.
Meanwhile, Freeze and Mithy continue to keep that poke going on this bottom lane, and the farm is edging in Freeze's favor. 95 to 73 now in terms of creep score, so definitely edging ahead slowly but surely. In terms of gold, you can see what that means. It's a 500 gold advantage switched across the two, which is why we see Selavar having to switch across and go for that white.
Yeah, the lane hasn't been too cooperative with what Selavar wants to do. And this is kind of the push-pull that they had to go through. Vaynes are typically best in 1v2s. But NIP is probably also best in 1v2s. And KMT kind of had to bite the bullet, do a 2v2 lane with Vayne and Thresh, but now they're behind up to 30 CS.
And unsurprisingly, level 9 has come around, and Zoro0 has surpassed the farm of Xaxus, and suddenly will start to grow an advantage. They're going to be careful of that one. Jankos laying in wait, seeing if you can skit around.
gank.
And get maybe a Lantern gank, actually. We haven't seen really any players coming out from Vander so far in this game. Yet, remembering watching the round robin, he made a lot of plays. It's actually going to be a really thrown, obvious dive there.
Yep. I mean, they used the Lantern to shield Selavar from harass at the turret, and then when Elise decided to come in, it was just discombobulated as far as that gank went. They're in two different directions right now. Jankos wants to go and get ganks, whereas Vander and Selavar are kind of just in rescue mode. They're not thinking about killing, they're just thinking about trying to stay alive and trying to farm.
And in terms of farm, they are actually behind in every single lane now. You see the mid lane, it is Nukeduck sneaking ahead of Overpower while he picks up this red buff. The top lane, well, Zoro0 is starting to claw ahead an advantage here. We've just seen them getting a little bit of damage in there, and Hercubot, well, he's absolutely been unneeded anyway. He's just continuing his farming round.
I'm actually kind of surprised that Elise has more farm than Amumu at this point, since he's the one who's been looking for ganks more so. And Hercubot, while he did secure a dragon, he hasn't been power farming extremely quickly either.
Well, we see the blue buff again. Remember, don't forget, Jankos hasn't had that blue buff twice, whereas Hercubot has had that blue buff. So he's been taking away everything, but like you say, he is just slightly behind right now. We see, looks like Nukeduck's going to be backing off on things, an early grow completed. Standard stuff is going to be coming out from him. He's just going to pick up the boots.
Across the board, NIP is playing extremely conservatively right now. And KMT is actually the team that needs to get a whole lot more aggressive, in my opinion. Obviously, if Selavar hits crazy items, he's actually going to be incredibly difficult for NIP to lock down. But I'm expecting maybe about a 20-minute jump for NIP where they really decide to turn it on. When Hercubot has 2 ranks in his Curse of the Sad Mummy ultimate, and maybe the second dragon starts coming through when it's worth more gold, is going to be the point where KMT wants to start fighting them. And I think that's when NIP is going to be ready for it.
Yeah, Hercubot has not even gone near a lane yet. He's not even approached to get it other than just standing, keeping it guard, and then not even attempting any of those bandage toss kills. So as it stands, and really has no reason to, because frankly all the lanes have been shoved up. Overpower has been disappearing off to try and get some farm from the jungles. You see the bottom lane, well, Freeze has pretty much kept them on that tower the entire time. Not a great deal of damage done to the tower itself, but just making sure it's shoved on there to trying to keep Selavar down in farm. And Jankos has to keep on coming down this bottom lane, has to lose out on that white as well, remember, every time. So it really is quite surprising that Hercubot's behind.
Yeah, absolutely. In farm, he's up in gold ever so slightly because jungle camps give varying amounts of gold, and he's just been taking the more valuable ones. Unfortunately for Hercubot, the first gank he decided to do, he sat on top of ward for about 20 seconds, so it's actually slowed him down. Let that be a lesson to Hercubot. Don't leave his jungle.
Well, this is what we've been told, what we expected. We see Zoro0 now up in that top lane, going between the lanes. Doesn't really care, sorry, between the two towers. Has warded out heavily that top half of the jungle, so he knows exactly. He's got full cover, and he's just going to start trying to exert some dominance on him. Hercubot, though, caught out with the cocoon, the hook. Very nicely brought in there. Could he have to use the Sad Mummy, but it's not going to be enough. Tries to turn it back around. He does go down, but it's first blood picked up by Mithy. Meanwhile, that leech is going to catch in towards him. The slow comes in, forces the flash out of Jankos, but it was just a jungler for support.
And the blue buff went to Selavar. That, unfortunately for Vayne can't use the blue buff very well, but that was the first real engagement. We waited 16 minutes for that one, and honestly, we haven't actually learned much because it just was the 1-for-1 trade, and now they're back to farming.
Yeah, Xaxus using that dominance to try and bully Zoro0 out between that turret. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, Overpower trying to get a little poke and actually put a lot of damage down onto Nukeduck's tower now.
Yeah, Nukeduck's going to be in a little bit of danger. That's the accumulated effect of missing out on 2 blue buffs, because Overpower has been able to shove to the turret as quickly as possible and get small amounts of damage each time. To Nukeduck's credit, he has farmed pretty much every minion that makes it to his turret perfectly, but he might lose that turret later.
So first turret of the game goes down. Ninjas in Pajamas have eventually cleaved out that advantage in the bottom lane, and like you say, Nukeduck, 176 farm, 17 minutes in, doing a fantastic job despite not having the blue.
And it's kind of fitting that this game has started with such a low amount of engagements, because that's actually kind of how Lemondogs played a lot of their season.
Yes.
Nukeduck, Zoro0, they're very used to sitting in lane and farming for extremely long periods of time. And Hercubot loves to play farm junglers, even if he didn't have the luxury of doing it all the time on SK Gaming.
Very patient play from this team. There's
Ezreal.
Nope, way too late on that one, but it does do quite a portion of damage because that Triforce is now completed on Freeze. So keep your eye on, see if they get any spikes of damage. At the moment, Ninjas in Pajamas, they are stacking in this mid lane. It's going to be a 5-man push.
And they're kind of trying to make up for losing that Dragon. I feel like NIP made a pretty big mistake by letting that Dragon go down to KMT. Knowing NIP had the timer on the first Dragon and not showing up for the second one, despite being a farm-heavy AoE damage team that wants to force fights around a congested Dragon area, they can't give that away more than once.
Well, as Dyrus said before, it was a great 4v4 game, and so far it's going that way in this one. Xaxus and Zoro0 keeping the pressure in this top lane, continuing to go. Ward gets placed down there, and now Zoro0, he's off between the lanes once again, between farming the two turrets, but the hook actually landed on Freeze. Good hook, but unfortunately for him, it was an Ezreal he hooked in, who quickly arcane shifted.
And there's going to be a bit of a standoff here until they can catch some type of advantageous fight. The 4v4 game and the 1v1 game are both slowly trending towards NIP. Zoro0 on Shyvana does outscale Xaxus on Renekton, so the longer he can just be in this standstill, the better it is for NIP as a whole.
Yeah, and he's just bullying just outside of tower range. Quite happy to keep trading, hitting that W, keeping that burn going. Blue buff once again going across the Hercumot, keeping that. Not once has Nukeduck had it. If he's going to have it, he's going to have to go for an invade.
There's not too much that NIP needs to do right now. What KMT needs to do is make something happen, because at this point, Zoro0 is living in that top sector of the map. Xaxus can't get rid of him. And while we've already lost a turret, and they need to maybe get some turret back in the mid lane.
Yeah, we see it as what, a 20 CS advantage, but it's actually nearly a 500 gold advantage between the two in that top lane, because Zoro0 keeps going up there, keeps taking those golems. Almost reminiscent of Darien back in the IEM Kiev days. But the blue buff, red buff, sorry, will be picked up by Freeze, so we'll see whether he starts to make those plays. You can see he's actually been caught up now in terms of gold because of that difference. Remember, he had a 500 gold advantage over Salavar at one point. That's been whittled back down to 100.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been a lot of farming. Ever since the bottom lane turret went down when Freeze and Mithy pushed it down, Salavar's been able to just catch up a little bit. You can see they're grouping up a bit more now and trying to get something back, but they honestly just keep running in to Hercubot, who may be in the right place when they go down.
Yeah, they were ready and waiting for that one. Overpower was making his way down south, but Nukeduck was tracking him, as he should. We haven't seen a singular shockwave attempt coming out from Nukeduck yet. 20 minutes gone into this game.
Well, when he uses it, it's going to count. He's saving it.
It's going to be big.
He's saving it until he needs it. And he doesn't need it right now. Because Kayle can't get the turret, the wave to his turret nearly as effectively as he could before. And he's able to easily keep it back with his Orianna now that he's leveled up. Oh, maybe a gank.
Maybe they will go for the gank. Zoro0 in all sorts of trouble trying to use that ultimate, but he can just get repelled upon. He does flash through, doesn't aggro the Baron, which actually... No, Jankos doesn't really have anything to aggro that Baron. They're going to go instead on towards Overpower, but quickly the flash having to be used out because Jankos had rotated down to the middle.
At least that's signs of life from KMT right there, because they tried to get Shyvana out of their stuff. He was stuck in between the turret once again, and they went all out for him. Maybe a flash over the Dragon Pit would have been warranted right there by at least to try and finish off a kill since they had him so low, but because they didn't, Zoro0 lives another day.
Absolutely surprised me. I would have thought he'd gone for it. He'd already got the repeller cost, could have gone across. Just a couple of Qs would have been enough to finish him.
Very well could have. I think his flash was up then. I know it's up now.
Yeah, absolutely. Nevertheless, it is all square one apiece still, and just 1,000 gold between the two teams. 22 minutes gone in this game. And you know, Ninjas in Pajamas, while you say they're playing for that late game, they have to be careful that Salavar doesn't get going on Vayne.
No, that is the one risk. I mean, we talked about the solo queue mentality of Vayne being able to carry a team by himself. That might happen in this game if they let him keep farming.
Flash was already used by Zoro0. Ultimate was used a moment ago. Cocoon doesn't land. Well, I don't think Xaxus wanted to give up on that one, but Jankos had already turned away and said, nope, he's gone.
It's been quite a while since we saw a game quite like this one. So farm heavy at this point. And honestly, Kayle and Vayne both scale very well. If we look at Jankos' Elise, if he gets his magic penetration, which he's completed at this point, he can actually cut through Zoro0 fairly quickly, no matter how tanky he gets on Shyvana. especially if you consider that Celavar's Vayne is going to be shredding them down. They're really now putting all their eggs in the late game team fight basket because we're past 20 minutes now. We're very quickly going to get out of the mid game and make it to the late game before they even fight.
And Xaxus really is putting up an impressive performance up against Zoro in that top lane, keeping him on his toes for sure. Overpower back in that mid lane. Overpower is going to start shoving these towers down very quickly, and this is why we're already seeing Ninjas in Pajamas reacting to it. That middle turret already low from the damage he's put on it earlier on. Hercubot's going to try and get himself some lane tax there as we wait for Nukeduck to return to lane. Nukeduck himself, well, we see now got that Haunting Guise in there as well. So going to try and get the Leandros maybe built up, but it is going to be all about the Dragon spawning in 20 seconds time.
Well, we're currently at about a 700 minion to 1 kill conversion rate. I hope by the end of the game, it's slipped a little bit more towards the kill side. This Dragon is definitely a point of contention as we approach here. There's a lot of wards going down right now.
That's a lot of wards. The sweeper, the pink. Don't forget that pink on an unlimited timer now as well. But we see the two top laners coming down. They want to fight it out before they get down here. But actually, if you keep your eye on the map, you can see Overpower is actually heading north, which is why Zoro immediately backs away from this one. But that has bought time for Ninjas in Pajamas to go for Dragon.
And they're going to have to rush this one down if they want to make this count, because they know that Kayle will be on the way, and they're actually disengaging and trying to get Celavar.
Not going to happen. Mithy on his own, though. Mithy might get singled out. They have got the Dragon down. Hercubot manages to contest that one, but Mithy's in all sorts of trouble. We see Celavar coming around. He catches Freeze, manages to condemn him on the wall, gets him down. Now he's chasing on to Mithy, not going to catch him there. Switches back to Hercubot. He's going to go down. They want to give it across to Celavar. They do. They get the double kill on Vayne. They get Vayne going. Zoro in trouble. Flash comes out from Xaxus. Not quite enough to take him down. And he can't. Oh, the Ignite! He's got him.
All told, it was 3 kills for KMT, and they had a very split fight. Very rarely do you see the collapse from both sides pay off in a kill, and they want more.
They tried to go for the hook. The flash comes out from Nukeduck. Another summoner spell burned, and that is another tower going down. KMT are turning it on.
Well, we knew that this Dragon fight was going to have a very large impact on the rest of this game. It just didn't seem like it would go to NIP, and what happened is they managed to, even though they landed the 3-mana Mumu ult, the Orianna ultimate missed during that fight, and KMT was split enough. Celavar got to take out one person at a time and just collapsed in around the sides of the team.
And KMT have systematically taken all 3 outer turrets at once. The top one was about to go down, and just like that, all off the back of that one singular Dragon fight, they have taken all 3 outer turrets, and you can see the gold advantage now in KMT's favor.
Yeah, KMT took a lot from that fight, especially because the 3 kills went on to Vayne, and also the fact that Xaxus did get that 1 kill on Renekton. He's trying to fight the inevitable outscaling that Zoro Zero is going to do. Maybe now that the Blade of the Ruined King is finally completed, that's the big item that Shyvana builds that really puts her ahead of Renekton. We'll see if Xaxus can hold on. Despite, after getting that kill, now the Blade of the Ruined King is done.
Well, both AD carries, they've got their big items in. You can see the Static Shiv, Blade of the Ruined King versus Trinity Force and Bloodthirster. Overpower, you can see him now. Lich Bane completed, Nash's Tooth completed. He is starting to lay down some hurt as well. So if they can focus on one target, those two combined will do an incredible amount of damage.
And you can see the Blue Elixir, which has also been completed by Overpower. He's going to use that to try and kind of use this 26-minute power spike, so to speak, since Celavar's finished a couple of items and they don't want the rest of NIP to kind of overscale them. Vayne is actually strongest right now, and they should try to take a little bit of objective and ground back because of that.
Zoro Zero managing to get some good ward placements, which gives him enough time to warn that Celavar was indeed sneaking into that top lane, trying to get a look towards him, as was Jankos. Jankos throws out the cocoon on towards Mithy, keeps him at bay, but it is Ninjas in Pajamas starting to put some pressure on this mid lane.
And they're trying to get something back. They knew that Celavar wasn't there. Celavar is the big threat they have to worry about right now. But maybe this passive playstyle that NIP had and that they've taken from Lemondogs, it could be hurting them a little bit right here. They've fallen behind in gold. I mean, they weren't necessarily the team to mount big comebacks. They either won slowly or they lost slowly. A lot of times they didn't know how to make big plays.
It's a harsh way of framing it, but that is exactly what used to happen. And often they did win against the odds. As it is, they've come into this one overwhelming favorites. And if you look back to, say, Lemondog's performance at the World Championships, it was far from overwhelming, and we have basically the meat of that team. Other than Tabs not being here, as well as the jungle, we pretty much have the Lemondogs, the heart and soul of it. Dexter, of course,
Absolutely.
was the other member, but overall, maybe they're just having a little bit of a hang-up from that, a little bit of hang-up from IAM Cologne, because there they didn't perform, and here, seems the pressure may have got to them.
I mean, maybe the extended hangover. I know Mithy, who everyone refers to as the brain and strategy caller, he doesn't like that title. He makes no jokes about it.
No, he doesn't mind about it, but the rest of the team don't like it.
Yeah, the team actually does seem like they're very collaborative right now, but you kind of need a little bit more of that
Here we
when
go.
you're trying to make something happen.
They're going to get the slowdown on ZoroZero. Has he got the damage overpower? Because ZoroZero has got his ultimate should he need it to just pounce away from this one instead. He will continue that farm, and of course with the support of Freeze heading on down to the bottom lane, who is actually, by the way, trying to take away some of Hercubot's jungle. He won't like that.
Yeah, well, they got to start sharing at this point because they've lost a couple of their other turrets, and the jungle is almost fair game to anyone at this point. You can see the tank build coming out from Hercubot. He's trying to really tank up, but he hasn't outpaced Elise on the other side hardly at all.
Well, they're going to catch on towards Mithy. The hook comes in. The flay is there. And wow, Mithy just dropped like that by Jankos and Vander.
And you can see a really heavy magic penetration build on Elise. Help that.
ZoroZero tries to jump away. Condemn and Flash, so just to get away with the Ignite. But they put a lot into that one. And that means KMT, they're starting to group around. And a Arcane Flash from Freeze just getting him away.
If NIP wasn't on their back foot before, they definitely are now. Seeing how quickly Mithy was obliterated by the magic penetration of Elise and how easily ZoroZero got shredded while he was trying to farm the lane means NIP is in trouble, and they're the ones that need to take some initiative now because KMT made their move and it's working.
NIP realizing they were in a 5-on-3 down in this bottom lane. We even saw Zazas making his way down. They have reacted in time to clear out that wave. KMT look to be backing away from this one. They've left Selavar down there to keep that farm going, though.
Yeah, and NIP has kind of missed the mark so far in this team composition. They haven't hit a person with an Orianna ult yet, as far as I can tell. Nukeduck, during the Dragon fight, missed it, and he has only used it once in this 30-minute game. They have to get more out of their cooldowns.
Did Zazas spot the smite being used there by Hercubot? Because Dragon is now up. There's no smite available. It's on half the cooldown timer still. KMT going to get that one.
Whether he spotted the smite or not, it's a KMT Dragon to take. Because ZoroZero is trying to split push right now on Shyvana, and the rest of the team was back in the base, basically hiding from KMT.
KMT are the driving force right now. The Polish team, can they get themselves a team back in there? Meteor Makers have been knocked out in day one of the promotion series. Can KMT replace them? Give the Polish a presence in the LCS. Right now, though, ZoroZero, we've been talking about him, we've been bigging him up so much, but honestly, it's Zazas that's been playing fantastic in his top lane on Renekton.
Yeah, he's definitely been holding his own, but those are some gargantuan farm numbers. And if anyone actually shuts down ZoroZero later, I don't think it's going to be Zazus, it's going to be Vayne and Kayle. Zazus, what he has to do is not lose to ZoroZero right now and be able to set up kills for the rest of the team if he comes through.
We're seeing a potential 2v2 in this top lane as these two duel. We do see Overpower and Nukeduck coming around the side there. Overpower did finally spot out that Nukeduck was there and they back away. But looking in the bottom, Selavar continuing to drive home on towards that tower. They're going to have to react to him.
Yeah, they are getting a little bit over split up, and I really have to point out how much magic penetration KMT is building as a team. Let's see if he can escape.
Selavar having to use his ultimate. He's going to try and go 2v1. Is it going to be enough on Freeze? Barrier Bay comes out. Is it enough to slow him down? True Shot Barrage comes out. Does find a target. Freeze throws out the shot. And wow, just like that, you can't 2v1. It's so hard.
That was well played by Freeze and Mithy right there, knowing what to turn around.
Well, Mithy died.
Yep.
That's for sure. Didn't see that one coming. Overpower.
That was kind of a 2v1.
That was a straight burst Lich Bane Q.
Yeah, things Kayle does when she has Lich Bane. Also, the magic penetration helped immensely with that. Just now, I believe the Mikael's Crucible was picked up by Mithy. He only had a Chalice of Harmony before that evaporation. He was already at half health, to be fair. But that's why Overpower is going to be scary for the rest of this match.
Well, Zoro still not caring, but he might well get caught in another 2v1 situation. They think he's gone to the try, but he hasn't. Jankos is coming. They're going to go around towards the red buff. He will find him, but Xaxus is too far away from this one. And immediately Jankos is like, I am not going to just solo that one. Cocoon will get laid down. This time Xaxus is going to come around, but Zoro should be able to escape this one without too much trouble. He's got Herky-Bot and Nuke Duck in support.
And we're also seeing these builds progress farther and farther towards max items. The more they kind of see each other in the jungle, don't find kills. Keep in mind, we're 33 minutes into this game with only 8 kills across the board. You almost never see a 333 CS top laner that hasn't gotten a kill or an assist. You either can't farm that much because the game is over, or you've actually gotten involved because your team is winning. It's this very strange game we have right now, D-Man.
He's definitely playing his own game, that's for sure, in that top lane, as Dyrus also alluded to.
Farming Simulator 2014?
Farming Simulator 2014, top lane farm. It's on at the moment. Of course, this is the 3.14 patch. Rengar was banned from this one, which is why you've not seen any picks and bans for him. If you're unaware of that, well, there was a bug found out, so that's why it is a problem. And these players, well, they will find that bug pretty quickly. And I wouldn't say they'd exploit it, but they certainly would go for it. But at the moment, it's going to be the banish shots thrown out, not going to land on towards Vander. And finally, Ninjas in Pajamas do get that middle turret down. So now it's all 3 outer turrets down. Zoro, a little bit of poke back on towards Xaxus. They did have a number of members of KMT closing in and around him, and immediately backs away.
It was a nice move by NIP to make that turret happen because they knew that Celaver's Vayne was in a different part of the map, and they knew that Xaxus was getting messed up. They finally did finish off those creeps.
Yeah,
it was a little sad. It's a little sad. Well, and I think the Baron's going to be the next big point of contention. I think KMT definitely has more ability to kind of sweep out that area and claim it as their own. You can see there's 2 sweepers on both sides right now. Oftentimes, near the end of the game, more people will get rid of their warding totems and then get the sweeping totems because they're trying to take map control back. And the map control around the Baron area is probably the most crucial thing in the game right now.
That singular ward down that bottom middle lane has been so crucial in spotting Jankos. Every time he tries to come out here, he gets spotted out and Zoro backs away. He is may well going to get caught out. He's got the support of Mithy coming in though. Xaxus is already taken low. Zoro might try and turn this one around. They've said they're going to go towards Jankos. Jankos is going to get taken low. He could get straight a lot of damage on. There's the ultimate coming out from Zoro. He's going to repel to the minions. Flash comes out. Xaxus, takes the lantern. Jankov gets away with that one. Herky-Bot had come in. True Shot Barrage not going to find the target. Only hits onto Xaxus.
Takes the Thresh Express right out of there, and it's so close this game right now, but that's the reason that Shyvana outscales a little bit late. You can see how quickly he turned around a substantial amount of damage, and now we have a really interesting thing. Overpow is bottom lane pushing, so this could be a 4v3 at the Dragon area with some powerful people of KMT trying to come in.
Nuke Duck down the bottom, cutting him off, making sure he doesn't go for it, but this is a Baron they may have to peel off from. Maybe they're going to go towards Yankov. Instead, no, they're going to back away from this one. And Vander feels them away, and good bullying, honestly, from KMT to keep them away. So they took a tower for basically keeping them away from Baron.
And that showed me how scared KMT, or how scared NIP is of Vayne. There was no Renekton ult coming in there, a Thresh support, and just a Vayne coming in there for 4 people inside that Baron pit. And they pulled away. They tried to go for Vayne, and he just backed away, and it stopped the Baron. They weren't willing to just try and fight a 3v4 in that pit while getting the smite, because Jankos was nowhere to be found. He had just went back to base.
We are starting to see the trinkets being upgraded here as well. Oracle's trinkets being picked up by both supports. I tell a lie, it's the support and both junglers that have picked it up. Dragon, though, again, 3rd Dragon of the game, given for free to KMT. Not a single point of contention from Ninjas in Pajamas. They have no idea on the timing now.
And this late in the game, since the average level in the game is over level 15, Dragon's worth 1,300 combined gold, 260 per person. That is only 200 gold less than the Baron buff. So while NIP got scared off Baron, KMT just took a Dragon and got nearly as much reward if you don't count the Baron buff.
And ward sweeping is being done by KMT, getting in all these pink wards that have been invested. Of course, they are visible now in 3.14. They're just getting taken down there. Lantern thrown out, gives him a free passage back away from that one. KMT all in position around the Baron area to make sure that NIP don't get back in there and start laying down the wards.
Yeah, and getting control back of that area was very key. I think we're going to have more action here in the top lane, though.
Ignite going down on towards Freeze. They may well have Zoro, so they may have enough this time around. Does get a shield. That will be Zoro going down, and KMT suddenly trying to turn this one on. Evander coming in, maybe going to throw one of those hooks out, but instead, it was a straight kill.
And we could definitely see the Baron happen right now. There's still a Kayle ult. Yes, they're down flash on Kayle, but this is huge. Freeze was not in range, and they can take down this Baron extremely fast.
This is a dangerous, dangerous play, though. Don't forget, Curse of the Sad Mommy with that Shockwave could do a heck of a lot. Trisha Barrage already landing across.
They're spreading out, though.
Baron is taken fairly low. It has been dropped, and that's going to be KMT picking up. They're just going to back out from that one. NIP are in trouble in this game.
It was such a crucial kill onto Zoro while trying to split push. 383 farm on Shyvana, but if you can never turn it around in team fights and you get picked off before Baron, it ends up hurting the team overall right there. They'd lost ward control at the Baron area when Zoro was caught out in that top lane, and the spread that KMT did while the potential steal was thinking about coming in by NIP, specifically Overpow, moving to the left of the Baron pit a little bit, meant that a Mumu ultimate would not have gotten who they wanted to, and they would have lost that 5v4 anyway. So really heads-up play by KMT here, dealing with the slow-playing NIP extremely well.
The one thing I will give to NIP so far that they have still in their banks, and it's actually going to be a mental block possibly on KMT. They were in a bigger situation than this against SK Gaming at DreamHack, yet SK Gaming managed to come back from the game. They couldn't break down that inhibitor defenses. They managed to get drawn out despite having a huge advantage over SK Gaming. They turned it around. So Ninjas in Pajamas will have watched that game because that was the event they were meant to attend. They will know exactly what happened, and they know if they just buckle down, which they have at the moment, they've still only lost one inner turret in a 7-2 game, 40 minutes into this game.
Yes, they do know how to turtle. One thing as well I want to mention, Freeze knows what a very late game Kayle can do. Back at Gamescom, Alex Each got incredibly farmed on Kayle, killed him in 0.11 seconds. He looked at his death recap afterwards, and Overpow's Kayle's getting close to that. Freeze is picking up a little bit of extra magic resistance because of that, Mercury Treads and a Spectre's Cow, but he's really got to watch out for Kayle regardless.
And that Guardian Angels on Vayne Salavar will mean he's a dangerous beast. They're scared of him already. And KMT, they're looking to siege down the turrets. You can see Salavar in that top lane is trying to be kept at bay by Zoro, but Salavar is very, very strong now, and you can see he's already putting damage down on it. It's not a lot Zoro can do about this one, unless he's going to be drawn into using his ultimate. Yeah,
Zoro can't 1v1 Salavar at this point. No one on NIP can 1v1 Salavar at this point, and no one can 1v1 Overpow on NIP either. So it's actually a team fight that needs to be salvaged somehow from NIP, and that doesn't necessarily happen, I think, until you get near the inhibitor turrets.
The one potential they could have, if Salavar gets stuck down here, is they could try and go for that 4v4 fight. As it is with the Baron up, they are just playing defensive duty, which is exactly what they should be doing. You can see the win rate there for Renekton, which is obviously Xaxus' champion, who has done a great job against Zoro. Zoro hitting that 400 CS mark, along with Nukeduck, along with Overpower, but this is going to be the middle turret being drawn down. Look at the bottom lane, though. We see, again, Overpower drawing down on towards that inhibitor turret. They are putting the damage down. The top inner turret going down. Overpower pushing every single lane now, KMT, and that middle turret is not going to be alive for long.
And this is exactly what KMT wants to do, the try push, because all NIP wants to do is catch a team fight into the Mumu ult with Shyvana and Orianna. KMT's not leaving that opportunity open.
And they have taken all inner turrets now. It's 6-3 in turrets. The middle, bottom inner turret, inhibitor turret goes down. Jankos in there, KMT pushing in towards the mid lane now. Salavar, he's still up in the top lane. He's still driving it home. They are taking every single advantage with this Baron buff.
And they've been out for a while. That's why once they get one inhibitor turret, they say, all right, job well done, everyone. They have to go back to base. There was 3,000 unspent gold on Overpow when he went for that. So I feel like he might just go for a Guardian Angel as his last item. He's thinking about what to buy, though, with this last check. Let's Deathfire Grasp as his last item on Kayle. So if he wasn't going to one-shot someone before, he will now with a 703 ability power Kayle.
There's only 9 kills so far, 42 minutes into this game, but I feel the next fight will almost certainly turn it and maybe even bring the victory to KMT if it were to happen. Baron buff is just about to run out, so that will be available in around about 2-3 minutes time. We see the Dragon is going to be spawning. It's going to be KMT picking up their 4th of the game without any contestation again from Ninjas in Pajamas.
And this is actually a fairly crucial point in the game, I feel like, for KMT to convert and get some of these inhibitors down, because 6-item builds were just now reached by Overpow's Kayle and Celabar's Vayne. 5 items is where NIP's AD carry and mid laner are at the moment. When there's 10,000 more gold on NIP, that 10,000 gold lead won't actually be a gold lead. So KMT, this is kind of their last chance to take advantage of a gold lead if they don't just want it to be 6 items for 6 items.
Yeah, before the superpowers meet and collide, as it were. Zoro, we haven't seen a great deal of him in any of the team fights, but I feel next fight that comes around, it almost certainly will be. KMT pushing down the bottom, but look at it. Overpow, he's got himself a free reign on that top turret.
They're just going to do this whole thing again.
He's going to take the top turret down. There's nothing to stop him. He is just going to demolish that turret in seconds.
And as long as there's no hard initiation by NIP, no flash ultimates by Hercubot, because KMT is playing so far back, they're going to continue to bleed and
look at Zoro get
base.
melted in that bottom lane. He just got destroyed in seconds. That is the most tankiest member on the team, taken down in a split second by Overpow. They can't do anything to stop him. They've had to send Nuke Duck, which means it's a 3-on-4 in this bottom lane.
That's the Deathfire Grasp Kayle for you. There's only one magic resist item on Zoro, so you can kind of see how he got shredded down, but that is just even more disastrous news for NIP.
That is a scary, scary moment for a very fed top laner. They're chasing into the jungle, but I'm not sure this is a wise idea. KMT laying in wait. Of course, Sadamumu, if he lands the Curse of the Sad Mummy at the right point with the Shockwave, could be a game changer. But honestly, they've got to do a lot of pushing in KMT. Even if they lose a big capital fight, they know they're not going to lose the game yet.
And a lot of people are surprised by how well KMT is playing right now. 78% of the fans who voted for NIP in this one. And 2 kills at 44 minutes isn't 78% vote confidence in this team right now. NIP all over the place. NIP is desperately trying to pick someone off, but that's it, someone off. They're not getting a group fight. If they got one person, they would take multiple inhibitors, and NIP is trapped right now, unless they do something drastic. And I don't think there's anything they can do right now.
And that duel between Nuke Duck and Overpow has yet to happen. They've yet to go at it. They have kept away from one another. And I'm not too sure who would actually win that one out right now. It's all about who would land that ultimate at the key moment. Overpower, we can see that Lich Bane just glistening. He's had it so long. We saw the burst damage he could put down on Zoro. If he got someone free, which he, look at this, he's on his own. He's behind him, he's going for the inhibitor.
But this is going to cost him his life and grant KMT the Baron. But that's the play right here. He's going to go for as many as possible as the team gets Baron. Great play. 2
Barons and 2 inhibitors. That is absolutely brilliant. He's going to sacrifice himself. He may get away with it. I'm not too sure. He's going to try and turn down. He's going to try and burst someone down. It's Freeze he's going to go for. Is he going to be able to put the damage down? He goes invulnerable. He gets dropped down. Flashes for it. Does get not get the kill. He does get taken down by Nuke Duck. But like you say, a Baron, 2 inhibitors, absolutely worth it.
Yeah, he kind of went Superman right there. He tried to spike down someone with a Banshee's Veil, so which is why he wasn't able to finish off Freeze.
No, that's not going to work.
But oh my, that was rather impressive. They are now just going to go for inhibitor number 3, and this, if anything, is where NIP would find a 5v5 fight, because it's now down to a singular point of defense, unless they try and split push at the inhibitor, at the Nexus turrets, but that's rather unlikely.
And you know, teams have been talking about how hard it is to finish out the game with just 1 inhibitor down, but 2 inhibitors down means double super minions. Well, not double super minions pushing both top and bottom lane, which means that mid lane can be free to keep that pressure on. And if somebody just sneaks on, which we've seen Overpower doing time and time again, follows in those super minions, he will put a lot of pressure towards that Nexus turret.
Absolutely right here. The Nexus turret can die in a couple hits if Overpower gets free to it. The 700 ability power with the Lich Bane still applies on turrets. The Lich Bane proc will definitely crush those down. And this is really KMT playing a 46-minute slow game. NIP has yet to make an actual move. This is the slow loss that you want to avoid as much as possible if you're trying to become an LCS team. They are not 100% out of this yet, as you have been saying, because they can still maybe find that one fight, but everything is against them right now.
And we should talk about Jankos, because Elise, at this stage, is effectively a mid laner. He's got the Randians, he's got the Leandris. He's got a lot of ability power, actually. I'm just going to look at him myself, because he is a very tanky. Don't forget the Baron buff, of course, is on him, but 262 ability power on the jungler. Freeze has actually got to be very careful of him as well.
Yeah, everyone on NIP can get blown up by a couple different people. Overpow can nearly one-shot whoever he goes for. NIP kept getting hit by Lee Stans. They're just going.
Curse of the Sad Mommy, it only caught Jankos out there, but he might just turn this one back around. They know that that big ultimate down, it's a giant cooldown as well, and they're just going to drive on through. Look at that. The Nexus turret was almost down as well. The super minions doing work here. Both of them are so low. Overpower would just get onto those in a singular shot. We can see the Vayne also pushing in. KMT are going to drive home to victory, surely.
KMT has played this one slow and steady, and they're going to win the race right here. All the turrets are extremely low. 3 waves of super minions will be on their way, and this is going to have to be a final stand, but how can they get in range to fight them?
And as Kayn Zoro0, Shockwave pulls out, because a lot of damage on towards Selavar, but just not enough. They're going to turn that back around. You can see Zoro0 getting dropped so low. Selavar picks up 1, picks up 2, getting on towards the Nexus turret. That's going to be the double. And then Zhonya's Hourglass used out, but really not going to help out, because that is KMT taking game 1 and shocking everybody in the room.
I mean, if that game wasn't so slow, I'd be really shocked right now, too. But right there, NIP made no aggressive moves to try and make something happen, and they let KMT farm up over and over. KMT strangled the split push of NIP. As soon as they had an answer for where Zoro0 Shyvana was going to be going, NIP stopped doing things. Deficio and the rest of his team absolutely has to regroup and come up with a new plan before game 2 and the rest of this series, because if they continue to play like that, KMT just showed them they'll beat you.
And the thing is, it was NIP that were playing the slow game. They wanted to take it to that stage, but they were countered so hard. It was already about that dragon fight, that there's a couple of kills given across to Selavar on the Vayne, and you know, once the Vayne gets going, no matter how hard he's been hitting patches, will be a scary beast.
And they never even really had to take it into team fights, because the reason the Vayne seemed like a bit of a scary pick was, oh, what's a Vayne going to do when he's got to dodge Shyvana and Orianna and all this other stuff that's coming at him? But it never went to a team fight phase, because the Kayle got so strong, that last pick Kayle that they planned around, that the Kayle could shut down any split pushers. It waited for Vayne to also get to that point, and they were doing a triple push for almost that entire game. That was the least grouping we've seen by a victorious team all weekend.
Well, we'll see how carried away KMT can get. Don't forget, they went 1-0 up in the DreamHack finals and ended up losing 2-1. Ninjas in Pajamas are going to be looking at that one, but SK Gaming were the ones that overturned it. And, well, we saw what SK Gaming could do yesterday. They overturned their own 2-0 deficit to win 3-2. Will we see it go 5 games? Because right now, that was a very close game. Despite the fact it was KMT that obviously gave a big advantage, it was an incredibly close matchup.
Yeah, I mean, there was a dragon fight really early on, and once NIP lost that one, they just didn't make moves to recover. That does seem like they still have a lot of the same attributes that the old Lemondogs team had, where if they're ahead, yeah, they'll know how to convert, but that initiative when they fall behind just isn't there.
Absolutely. So we've got to take a quick break here, but when we return, it is going to be game 2 between KMT and Ninjas in Pajamas, plus TSM's owner, team manager, Reggie. He's going to be joining us to talk about his team's impressive performance in the Battle of Atlantic. And I can tell you, he was pretty nervous watching that one. The 2014 Spring Promotion Tournament will be right back. Stick around.